Let's now spend a little time together discussing the various functions of the skin. If we wanted to create a list, this would be the overall best list we could come up with to simply write the functions of the skin as an organ. The most obvious function of the skin is protection. By stating the skin functions in protection, we are really saying a lot. The skin functions to protect us from trauma or infection. It actually creates a physical barrier around our body, even to keep bacteria out, but also to keep water in. So just the idea of having this thick, firm, waterproof layer on the outside of our body that actually does have the ability to sense any type of pressure or stimulus from the outside really is an overall protection. We are protected from ultraviolet light. I'm going to explain this in more detail in a moment, but we have melanin in our skin that does that for us. Your skin is responsible for a metabolic process which involves the conversion of a component in our skin to the vitamin known as vitamin D. In order for our skin to convert something called cholecalciferol into vitamin D, we actually need exposure to the sun. As I mentioned, we have many nerve endings in our skin that allow us to respond to sensation. Your skin is incredibly important when we consider thermoregulation. Your skin can have an alteration of blood flow, but your skin is also responsible for a cooling effect. Typically, we sweat when we are hot. We do this to put a nice layer of a watery substance on the outside of our body, which actually will allow a cooling effect to happen. Another function of the skin is part of our ability to communicate non-verbally through facial expressions. We typically think of our muscles as being responsible for this, but our skin is actually a big part of this. And I thought this was such a funny image that was found in the textbook, because it shows you that on many different levels of animals, we use our skin as part of our facial expression. Now let's look at some of the cells and talk a little bit more about function. Our keratinocytes, cells found in the epidermis, produce the keratin. The keratin is what gives us the waterproof layer, and so this is really a big part of protection, protecting us against water loss, against bacteria or chemicals coming into the skin that we do not want inside of our body. Our stem cells are the mitotically active cells that help us to continue to regenerate skin cells. Our melanocytes produce melanin. Melanin is a dark pigment that is produced by our melanocytes that give our skin color. Genetically, some people produce more melanin than others, but regardless of your natural amount of melanin in your skin, exposure to the sun will increase melanin that is produced. So if I draw a generic cell and say this is a cell of our body, inside of the cell we have a nucleus where our DNA is housed. What the melanocytes will do is secrete a dark protein called melanin, and then that melanin will actually get deposited on the outer edges of our skin cells. And so what it's doing is sort of putting a cap on the cell to have that dark pigment to protect what's really most important, which is our DNA, from exposure to the sun. So if you go out and you get a tan, you might be getting a tan because you want to look nice and dark, but what's happening is your body's saying, whoa, you're putting me in the sun way too much. I'm scared my DNA is going to get damaged. So let me put this pigment on the top of my skin cells to try to protect me. You know, that tan doesn't last forever. Over time, as your skin cells produce and move out to the edge and slough off, The tan will go away because your new cells haven't been exposed to the sun as much. They don't have as much melanin in them. Anyone that lives closer to the equator, closer to the sun, where it's hot and they're out in the sun a lot, they're going to naturally have more pigment, more melanin in their skin than someone who lives in areas where they don't get much sun exposure. The tactile cells, which are our touch receptors, that is also part of protection and the ability to sense. Dendritic cells, our immune system cells, of course, are protection. They're part of our immune system. So as we look at this image and we think about function, you need to understand that cells are going to divide here in the stratum basal layer and then slowly move out to the edge. So the outer edges of our skin, those are the oldest, and the most deep layers of our skin, these are our newest or youngest cells. So let's think about, as we go deeper in our skin, what is the function of those layers? The best answer I have for you is really overall to help connect the outer portions of the skin to the deeper layers of our body. But there's also some protection that goes on here. The subcutaneous fat is actually deposited to give you a nice cushion. It does also exist as an energy reserve. We have the ability to reach into our adipose tissue and pull out fats when we need something to break down to produce energy. We also use our adipose tissue as a thermal insulation to keep us warm. When we think about skin color, I've kind of already touched on this some. The primary pigment of skin color is melanin. Melanin is a dark brown color. This coloration in our skin is actually placed there as a protective mechanism against the sun. So certain nationalities are going to naturally have more melanin in their skin than others. Melanin, however, is not the only pigment that gives our skin color. There are some other factors. We have a pigment called carotene. This is found in some of our vegetables, and anybody that's ever been around babies a lot, if you feed them too many carrots, they may actually get a little bit of an orange color to their skin because they actually have so little melanin that you can see more of this keratin popping through. And then also you can see different amounts of vessels shining through. So some people, especially the elderly, as their subcutaneous fat layers get thinner, their skin will begin to look a grayish blue color, and sometimes that can come from some of the hemoglobin shining through. Your hair and your fingernails, when we're thinking about function, actually are important. So with your hair, if we think about function, it serves a couple of different ones, but overall, I have a few listed on this slide for you. Your hair functions to serve as a sensation for us. Have you ever felt like something was crawling on you? That sensation, that feeling like something is crawling on you, is actually sensations that you have as your hair moves. Having extra hair on your head helps you to maintain heat, protects you against sunburn. We have certain hairs in places like our nostrils and inside of our ear canals to kind of guard, to keep things from going in that aren't supposed to come in. Eyelashes and eyebrows are part of facial expressions, but your eyebrows, they're actually there to keep sweat from going into your eyes. Your eyelashes will typically give you a sensation to close your eye before you get poked in the eye. Fingernails are a little bit easier to explain. Your fingernail covers the edge of the skin, And so it serves really more as protection. For information with more detail concerning the different structural components, please watch the video titled Structure of the Skin.